And I call the member for Melbourne.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Environment and Energy. In a Senate committee report tabled yesterday, Australia's biggest power company, AGL, which runs coal-fired generators like Loy Yang in Victoria and Bayswater in New South Wales, called for a clear national plan for the orderly retirement of coal-fired generators. For the first time ever, the companies running coal-fired power stations are joining with affected communities, unions and environment groups in calling for a government-led, orderly and just transition to a clean economy. Minister, will you do what the Senate committee report recommended and take a plan to the December meeting of the COAG Energy Council, or for this government is plan still just another four-letter word?
The Minister for the Environment and Energy.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the member for Melbourne for his question. And just last week I got a question from the member for Melbourne, and I said when he was thinking up that question he was sipping his latte, putting his sandals up on the table in Brunswick Street. But lo and behold, after question time, the member for Melbourne put out a press release, and he said he was offended because I was playing the man, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to apologise to the member for Melbourne because I found out he's not a latte man, he's a mocker man, Mr. Speaker. And they weren't the sandals, they were thinking man sandals. You put your Birkenstocks up on the table, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are dealing with a transition in the Australian energy sector. We have seen 8 out of the 12 most emission-intensive power stations close over the last 5 years, and with the announcement that Hazelwood will close at the end of March next year, that will be 9. There is a transition. But the member for Melbourne referred to the report that was tabled in the Parliament and the Senate yesterday, dare I say leaked by somebody who knows who, to the media before it was officially tabled. But it's always important, isn't it, to go, when you're looking at the reports that are being named by the member for Melbourne, to look at some of the evidence that was put before that Senate inquiry. And we went to the Hansard. And there was evidence given to this Senate report on coal-fired power stations from the director of the Mining, Chemicals and Energy Workers Union in Germany, a Mr. Mersman. Now, Mr. Mersman was brought out here by the ACTU, and you would think that he was brought out by Labor to give evidence to a coal power plant inquiry, that he would say it's the end of coal. But he was asked this question by our colleague, Senator Hume. How many coal-fired power stations are being built in Germany? Mr. Mersman, 4 or 5, Mr. Speaker. And then the next question from Senator Hume. Is coal-fired power being imported into Germany from Poland? The answer from Mr. Mersman, yes, of course, Mr. Speaker. And was he asked what's happened to electricity prices, and he says they have increased. So, Mr. Speaker, the bottom line is every country is different. In Australia, 60% of our power is being generated by coal. And we have a transition plan which involves putting energy security at number 1. We are dealing with a trilemma of issues: energy security, energy affordability and a lower emissions future. We will not sacrifice blue-collar jobs in the regions in order to win Green votes in the city, which is not just the position of the Greens, but unfortunately has been now joined by the Labor Party, who are in partnership with the Greens, a bit like they were during Julia Gillard and Bob Brown's time.